Today, for the first time, we don't have one guest, we have two guests simultaneously. And that was also on a push from my dear brother, BJ McBride. He helps to lead what we're going to talk about today, which is the 1-800-HAPPY BIRTHDAY Project, a living memorial and public art installation that honors victims of police violence like Sean Monterrosa, who we're going to talk about today.
Every year, the amount of numbers of individuals who have been killed through interactions with law enforcement has gone up.
And a new investigation suggests that a Vallejo police officer did not have objective reasoning when he shot a suspect. It happened
Also
in June
joining
of
us today
2020.
is Michelle Monterrosa,
When officers
a
responded
trauma-informed advocate and co-founder of the Sean Monterrosa Project, her brother. Ashley's a strategist and educator. She centers youth mental wellness, public safety reform, and coalition building.
It was later determined that a weapon Monterrosa was holding turned out to be a hammer and not a gun.
It's a hammer or a pencil or a phone, right? What we needed as a family was love and support from the very beginning. We were not met with any of that.
The headlines might not be there, but we have to rally as a community. We have to be there for each other.
My name is Mark Brand. You are listening to Better. I'm a social impact entrepreneur, so I build businesses that are in service to the greater community. So Better was formed to be a tool for everyday advocacy. I think anytime we take people's attention, we have to give something. Folks, welcome back to Better. And I've introduced you based on my own research and my experience of you, but I'd like to start with Michelle. How do you introduce yourself these days?
Man, as a surviving sister of my brother Sean, this work, growing up, I thought I would have a whole different career trajectory. And honestly, after June 2nd, my life, creator, God, the higher power had a whole different plan for me. And it's been really just being my brother's keeper, but also ensuring that what happened to my family does not continue to happen to others, and that we're met with the resources and love and support that is necessary to, work through this grief, and also just surviving state-sponsored violence for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you. And BJ, shifting over to you, I introduce you often. And so how do you introduce yourself these days?
Oh man, a servant for the people, honestly. And I think that what I'm really trying to move toward is just utilizing art and artistic mediums and service for the people. I really think that's the mode in which we heal. I think it's the mode in which we could spark imagination. I think it's the mode in which we truly dream. And I think that's really what's pushing me in this new season, and trying to use our artistic practices as much as I possibly can to humanize experiences, to truly honor the ancestors, and be a positive force in this world.
I'm a Rodney King kid. I'm a 70s, 80s baby. And so this topic that we're going to be discussing today is in no way new. This particular piece of violence we're going to talk about today is off the back of George Floyd, which really resonated and again shook everybody in a way which it needed to and continues to need to. And then during those riots on June 2nd in 2020, Sean Monterrosa was fatally shot by the Vallejo police detective Jarrett Ton while kneeling with his hands near his waist. That part is undeniable. What police thought was a firearm turned out to be a hammer tucked into his hoodie. The shooting occurred through a windshield, and the officer involved had a prior history of shootings. Since then, Michelle, who's with us, and your sister Ashley have emerged as powerful advocates for police accountability, community healing, and systemic reform. And so I want to start with a question to you, Michelle, which is you've become a trauma-informed advocate because you had to. How has that lens helped you navigate the pain of losing your brother and also helped others adjacent to you survive this trauma?
Yeah, I mean, most importantly, losing a sibling, but losing a loved one or anyone in your community to the way he was killed is so tragic and horrific. So for us, it was really sitting with the message that Creator had a different plan for our family. How did we channel our pain of losing our brother to ensure that he would be the last one? So navigating the systems, but also recognizing that what we needed as a family was love and support from the very beginning. We were not met with any of that. Most of the times when families are impacted by police violence, it's a GoFundMe or community showing up. There is no victims rights group. There wasn't like a victims rights fund for us, right? We started like rallying. We started using social media as a tool. Gained a grassroots following of 20,000 people to follow Justice for Sean, and again, humanizing at the center of everything who Sean was. We
Mhm.
knew that media was always going to play its role of not humanizing our loved one, but what is our role as family to tell our stories, to reclaim narratives, to also say Sean is a small piece of this bigger situation. We've met families along our journey who've said, no one showed up. No one cared.
Right?
Me Media just came, took its little photo op or clip, and that
Mhm.
was it, right? No one invested or brought a meal. Simple as that, bringing a meal, right? That we wanted to ensure that again, our advocacy, our stories, telling Sean's story also that people are connected and that, we do the collective work to prevent this harm. And at the end of the day, just by centering each other and humanizing each other, I believe that's the way we can win. Finding the light at the end of the tunnel has been hard, especially when you're fighting against these institutions have been doing this for so long and, also pitting families against each other when in reality, we're all here to win. We're all here to see this stop. And we just need the support of community to show up when we have those call to actions.
Beautiful. So, BJ, I want to shift over to you. You've been adjacent to gun violence projects for a while since I've known you, but why this project and what's it taught you about the power of memory in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was thinking about all of that today, and what really was coming up for me is thinking about kind of the shift that kind of got me into the work. Like you said, I've kind of always been adjacent to it. Got family members who are strong activists, community leaders, and it's always kind of been something that I've always kind of been around. But it was truly the loss of Mario Woods, which is another
Mm.
young man in San Francisco that was gunned down by the San Francisco Police Department, shot
Mhm.
20 times. And it was truly that incident that really pushed me into the work. I recall I was living in San Francisco at that particular time and literally took the same route where the tragedy happened for Mario. A couple hours prior to that tragedy happening, I was on my way to my job in a financial district in San Francisco. And I just recall in that moment when all that went down, the phone calls that I got from family members checking if I was okay because they knew that was my route. And I just remember stopping everything, getting up in the middle of the meeting after I saw the video and just walking down to Third Street to kind of be with community and to show up in a real way. And I recall something that was like really, really interesting in that moment. After a lot of the protests and gatherings, we kind of found ourselves in a room with Gwen, Mario's mother. And Gwen in that moment talked about, don't forget my baby. And the
Mm.
crazy thing for me was like, as fresh as that situation was and how challenging that situation was, she was already thinking about people forgetting who Mario was,
Mhm.
the dehumanization of that particular individual. And that's something that stuck with me and has like propelled me in this work and like committed me to this work because I think the memory is so important around thinking about who these folks truly are. Beside the circumstances that might have led to what happened, um who are they? How can we humanize them? How can we show truly their impact on their family, their impact on the community, their impact on the world? And I think with this project, with the started off as a digital voicemail project where we allowed folks to call in and leave happy birthday messages for the individuals who transitioned due to police violence. um it's transformed and has gone through a number of iterations, and it's something that we're now doing exhibitions. We did a huge exhibition in Brooklyn in 2022. We're now looking at doing public art installations around the country to honor these individuals. We work with 13 families across the country, hoping to expand that number because we know that's not just these families, but it's more people. It's a consistent thing that's happening all the time. So this work in this project is near and dear to me. It's under the leadership of a good friend of mine, Mohammed Georgistani, amazing filmmaker and creative himself. And he pulled me in on this project, and it's been something that's been a beautiful next step into the work that I was doing. And I'm just really grateful to share space with amazing activists like Michelle and the other families that are a part of this particular project. And we're really just trying to do the work on elevating these narratives and these stories and humanizing these lives.
Michelle, and I want to ask you, on behalf of you and your sister and your brother who's with us here today, no question, you've been holding these institutions accountable on one hand while mentoring the youth on the other. Right. And
Yeah.
so in these same sort of joy and pain modalities, this is a selfish question. This is from me. How do you not bring the cynicism? How do you not bring the pain directly into those conversations so that the mentoring can occur?
Mm. Well, what's beautiful is as I mentor these young people, I'm actually mentoring and running a program that my brother was once a part of when he was younger. So, I remember, and crazy enough, so when we were having the art exhibit in New York, my brother's mentor called me while we were at the 1-800, the first, like the family viewing, we had like a session for ourselves. And I get the phone call and she's like, "Hey, I need help." And I was already in the midst of leaving another job. And she was like, and it would be to run the LifeWorks program. It's the program that your brother was a part of when he was younger. And
Mm,
it's basically providing workforce development to young system and justice involved young people, 14 to 24. And for me, I was like, wow, to get that call while we're celebrating all the families, but to get a call, one of my brother's mentors to say, "You're the person for the job. I want
Mm.
you to be the one mentoring these young people and providing them those opportunities." So for me, I've even forgot that. And I'm just like, wow, full circle moment that this project, I got that call. And now I've been in that role for 3 years of mentoring these young people. And again, I always tell them, you know, it's so easy to get caught up in the fast life. Young people are really going through it. And we always talk about young people as that they're the future, but they're also our present. And,
mm.
those who are involved in the system, in and out, it's really hard sometimes to like capture the essence of life for them and them just getting out of the hamster wheel. Bringing that his last text message to my sister and I was, "Hey, can you help me by signing this petition?" Simple as that. Never would have known that that was Sean's last message to us on this earth. And I use that as a conversation with our young people. Sean's call to action was for us to show up. So I tell them, I'm like, his call to action to you being in this program is for you to show up for yourself. Because if you don't, you're gonna continue to be funneled into the system that doesn't care about you. Once you go from the juvenile courts, then you're in adult courts and then they really forget about you. So for me, it's hard to sometimes not bring the emotion into the space, but sometimes I do because young people need that vulnerability and create that space for them to be vulnerable too. We tell them to, you're the next, you guys are gonna take the baton, right? And most of these kids will be, right? But we have to also give space for them to create, to envision, but to also be really vulnerable with themselves and really like do that internal deep work that they need to. So I mean, I love doing what I do. These young people are amazing and they've just haven't been given the chance that they need to thrive.
BJ, with Dear Beloved, which I'd also like you to talk about if you can, because I think it's really important. And now with this work, you keep returning. In my experience of you, you keep returning to the idea of multidimensional storytelling. What does it mean to you, and how does it offer things that traditional activism can't?
Man, that's a beautiful question, and thank you for even recalling all of that. I think the ways in which I try to think about this space and how we were kind of moving as a unit and we were kind of creating these spaces is the importance of just creating a safe space for a community to process, to sit with, to think about, to share amongst each other. And then also we're super intentional around like bringing in the creative mediums that have caused us to heal from as far back as we can go. It is through the words, it is through song, it is through dance, it is through all these different elements that we have really been able to like process hardships, process grief in different types of ways. So I think what we always are trying to do when we're creating these spaces is really trying to just create a container and create a safe container for folks to really process. And in doing that, we start to realize that we have all the answers within our community. We have all the answers within the space. It's really around us taking a second to take a step back from everything that's distracting us and giving us the opportunity to just sit, to listen, to process, to heal, to talk, to digest all these different things that are super important to us really finding the solutions, finding the answers, and then making the steps and onboarding other people to get involved and what is their action step. But I think it really starts with humanizing folks and really kind of creating a safe space, a safe container for us to really digest and have these conversations.
Yeah.
Whew, so much in that. And where are those spaces, right? Like it feels like there's a rallying cry. So Michelle, I've been building third spaces my whole career. Like my entire thing as a restaurateur was like these are just Trojan horses for community engagement and activism, right? Like how can I build spaces where people feel included and safe that also have incredible food and drinks? But like that they feel really safe to talk about the issue. So I build my spaces in areas of resistance. There's so many lies and so much disinformation, and it's just flooding us and overwhelming us digitally. How do we step out of that space into truth?
I think at a time too where our stories are being erased, it's so crucial to like just really be rooted in our history, our storytelling. It's so impactful because oftentimes, I mean, all of us are on calls with these funders or legislators, and they're like, "What's the data? What's the data? What's the data?" And we're like,
Mhm.
"We're the living proof of the data."
Mm.
Our stories have been showing y'all the data for decades, but once you trickle down of the methods and theories and stuff, I mean, we live in the neighborhoods. We see what still happens. Like people talk about how do we build power with people? You got to go to the door. You got to go to the neighborhoods. You got to ask for permission first because you can't be that person just come with your coat and parachute in, get your data and parachute out. Like you have to ask permission first. But really be true, intentional, and really just want to ensure that after whatever research or whatever you're trying to do, that you're also bringing those investments back to those communities. And you know I love ethnic studies, but also in a time where, again, just echoing, we're living in a time where all our stories being erased, our books are being erased, our Sean's stories trying to be erased. We're always fighting, right? It's like the David and Goliath.
Yeah, but you're centering 2 big power pieces, and I think this is a takeaway for everybody. And I also want to preempt with, it shouldn't have to be this way, but it is this way, which is, being taking power, being around power, and changing hearts and minds has to happen from action. A swing back to BJ, because erasure is a huge, and I want us just to let that word hang for a second. Like, we have been taught so many things that aren't true, and us facing the truth of all of these things allows healing to actually begin. Versus saying, "Oh, that is too uncomfortable for me to manage." And if that's true, then my whole life has been based on a house of cards in some way. Dramatic, I have a tendency for that. But, like, that is how do we then approach these things? And so, BJ, you've always helped in shaping the future of how we remember. Right? As a narrative storyteller and as, experiential storyteller, how we remember now is more important than ever because we're doomed to perpetuate these same mistakes unless we change them. And so, the question I have myself whenever I talk to a storyteller is what responsibility comes with that? Like, how do you keep that responsibility the way that you do, grounded so heavily in love?
I think even what Michelle touched on earlier, I think it's so important to root yourself in the history, to root yourself in understanding that none of what we're facing is actually new for us. We've been here before. We've had to navigate these types of things before, and I think when we root ourselves and we understand the deep history of going back in. I always think about Sankofa. Sankofa is like a huge thing for me in a lot of my work, and I think the definition I loosely kind of use around it is it's not taboo to go back and fetch what's at risk of being lost, right?
Mm.
So it's really important for us to truly go back and fetch those lessons, fetch that history, fetch those the ways in which they were able to navigate and move forward and create a feature that truly was like something that they probably didn't even truly like understand what they were doing in terms of like creating something that we can step into now. So and in the work in this work and all the work that I think we're collectively trying to do, I think it's really rooted in like understanding our history, being present enough to understand what's happening in this particular moment. I think it's really around being able to reimagine and imagine what the future could be and what does that truly look like and how do we hold space for that. So I think that's really where we really have an opportunity in this moment. Is truly sitting at like the just sitting with how we can truly think about what the future looks like and how do we write ourselves into it. I think it's Octavia Butler that often says that you got to imagine these worlds and you have to write yourself into that world, into that future. So that's really kind of, the thing that kind of holds space for me, and something that I think we're trying to do in this particular project.
So, Michelle, what do you wish that sort of every person who's listening to this uh, hears about Sean's story, and what do you want them to actually understand about what happened that night that you feel may be misunderstood?
Yeah, I mean, Sean was a carpenter laborer, you know, having a hammer. How is a hammer, it's a hammer or a pencil or a phone, right? How do these people who are trained to respond, right? How are these things considered weapons? What is it that they believe they saw, right? To be a handgun for not just Sean's case, but so many other cases, right? And the more that we had to learn about this department, watching footage, hearing the audios and stuff. Where did he point at us? I don't know, man. I don't know. Even the other officer saying, I don't know, man. And in the context of how Sean, unfortunately, was killed, is that the officer who killed Sean was sitting from the back seat of an unmarked pickup truck as it was moving, and shot from the back seat. From the back seat, so not only could he harmed our brother, but he coulda harmed the driver, he coulda harmed the passenger, So and it's one of those things where, again, a hammer, phone, pencil, it does not equate death. Sean should have been given his due process. Again, he has not it wasn't the first encounter with the, law enforcement. He knew what to do, surrender, and if in his mind it was probably like, well, my family will come find me, whatever, right? But he was robbed of that. And, just even dissecting the history of Vallejo and everything is that, they've been allowed to create this pattern and practice, this culture. Another thing that I wasn't able to highlight, but this is a department that has an internal gang-like culture. They bend their star of their badges to signify how many bodies they've killed. They would go across the street to a pub that's across the street from the station where they would literally celebrate and barbecue like festivities to bend the badge. And people think this was the DA would say we don't chase rumors. It wasn't rumors. We did a documentary with Vice, and it's called Triggerman. And in the documentary, Vice sometimes does things they don't tell you. So when we watched it, they had a former badge bender show his badge on the documentary and say, "Yeah, I was part of that ritual." And he talked about coming into that department, gang-like culture, but it was one of those things where they had no choice but to be a part of it, right? Everyone has a choice. But to even see that they had somebody who, left the department, must have felt safe enough to God must have touched this man's heart, to come and actually talk about the harm that's been done. A thing my sister and I always talk about, like, what's the alternatives? This is when you start investing in community. This is when you start equipping the moms, the neighborhood folks, when there's crisis, that they're the ones to respond.
Mm,
They're the ones to stop the bleed campaigns. You have credible messengers. You have credible violence interrupters on the street, right? Community violence interventions, like that's where the investment should be, and not in these systems that think they keep us safe when in reality, no one in Vallejo really calls the police because they know that one, you might get somebody like Jared to come back out. Or again, it's just a disconnect, distrust, and all of that. It's been a lot of work. We have faced many wins and a lot of losses, right? The biggest loss was when the DOJ told us we're not going to bring charge. I can't ethically charge,
right.
can't ethically charge. And it was one of those things, do we let this have us give up, or do we just re-strategize, pivot, and channel our energy into other things? And creating the Sean Monterrosa project, just continuing and formalizing her work as my sister and I doing this work, and creating the physical beacons to honor our loved ones is huge.
Definitely.
Uh, Having that mural for Sean in San Francisco where it tells a story, to having his own street his own name on the street, the Sean Monterrosa Boulevard, in a neighborhood we grew up and my parents still reside in. In our school, we have a community library. So for us, again, with this pain that's happened to our family, and even being part of 1-800 Happy Birthday to reclaim that joy is so powerful and impactful, because we know that these departments are going to continue to do what they do. They're going to continue to prolong what quote unquote justice looks like for families, but it's really about what we want to create that justice to look like for
That
ourselves,
part.
and also bring healing and love for ourselves, and knowing that the work we're doing is gonna people are gonna remember your loved ones, but also the work doesn't stop here. It continues, and it's always evolving. That's the biggest thing. It's like
Absolutely.
the methods that we had maybe a few decades ago aren't the same methods. And as BJ said earlier, like we haven't faced these fights, it's not something new. It's just again learning from what we've done in the past and bringing new tools and new
That's
methods.
right.
And again, how do we just again do this work? But at the end of the day, we wouldn't be able to do this without our praying mom. And you see me and Ashley do this work, but our parents are the ones giving us that love and
Sure.
support to be able to do this work. So, naming the mamas and papas in this movement, but also the siblings that a lot of us carry this work too for our parents, because many of them came to this world for American dream and have been met with the American nightmare. And how do you just channel that energy into positive? It's hard, but you got to do it.
Agreed. Agreed on all. And again, 17 more podcasts in just that one piece. So BJ, to finish us off here, what are the moments that have broken you open in the best of ways through the project, through 1-800 Happy Birthday, the ones that stick in your chest and say like, this is why I do this work.
Oh wow. Man, I would say probably the first 2 weeks that I started this particular role, we had an opportunity to go celebrate Mike Brown in Ferguson and St. Louis. And I remember, we took the booth down. It was the centerpiece of the birthday celebration that we did with his mother and his community and his family. Partnered with Campaign Zero, Worthless Studios, Even Oz, 1-800 Happy Birthday. So the whole team was a huge part of this particular project. But I just recall getting a chance to talk with Leslie and kind of stepping out. We kind of stepped out of the space for a second and had a personal conversation. And she was essentially expressing to me like this is the first time that she celebrated his birthday in 10 years. And it was that moment for me that I was just like, wow, like this is the first time I'm publicly celebrating my son's life like
Mm,
this. It's been 10 years since I've felt comfortable enough or safe enough or in community enough to do that. And it just implored me to just say, hey, beside anything that we can do, we have to create safe spaces for these families. We have to hold these mothers, we have to hold these communities with love and care and sensitivity and honor and respect. And so I think back to that moment all the time around like really trying to really center this work in a really powerful way. So but it's in all of it. It's really in all of it. It's in all of it. I think the one thing that I've taken from all of the work that we've done around this is just how much brilliance and knowledge is within the group, and how important it is to create a space for them to even also learn from each other. Like, a lot of the work that I was doing prior with mothers who lost children to gun violence was truly why we created a space. It was the most beautiful interactions happen when the mother who just lost their child is being consoled by the mother who's navigated this 10 years prior, right? And she's able to pass along that information and those lessons and that and to be a guide throughout the process. So I think those are the things I really try to grab a hold to. Those are the things that really inspire us all to continue in this work. It's not an easy thing to do. It's challenging. It gets heavy. But I think it's all of our responsibilities to think about how do we engage, how do we not turn a blind eye, how do we like truly try to be a safe space in our community and really try to lift up these legacies and in these names, in these memories of these individuals who are so powerful. And yeah, so I mean that's really the gist of it for me, Mark. That's
beautiful,
that's
man.
really what I'm trying to get at, man. And I think it's something that we are intentionally trying to do with the work that we're doing with 1-800 Happy Birthday. We're pushing to, like I said, expand the work, expand the program, get more families involved, but really try to make sure that we center this conversation. The numbers continue to go up. I
Yeah.
mean, since my every year, the amount of numbers of individuals who have been killed through interactions with law enforcement has gone up every year since then. And we know that the headlines might not be there, but we have to rally as a community. We have to be there for each other. We have to make sure that we don't forget. We have to make sure that we're honoring these individuals, and we're making sure that this isn't something that happens or continues to happen, for the folks that we love and care about.
Beautifully said, and a really, really nice way to start to bring us to a close. And, you know, just so people can land some of that, there was about 1,200 people fatally shot and killed last year alone. And very, very few of those deaths have any reputable evidence alongside of them. So when you think about the magnitude, and we talked about this earlier, of that impact on the family, on the community, on the neighborhood, when we say that somebody loses their life, how many people does that impact? The two people who are with me here today are reversing that osmosis. BJ and Michelle, thank you for. Sean was a carpenter. That one's never going anywhere. That's going to stay right here with me. And I hope for you at home to continue to help us work towards all of this avoidable brutality and violence that impacts lives for so long. Thank you both for being with us. What a gift to have this conversation with you, and excited to support you as you continue to move through the world. I'm Mark Brand, and you've been listening to Better.